Habit 6, Part 2. Celebrate your own diversity. Our tendency is to ask, which fruit is best? The answer is, that's a dumb question. I have 3 brothers. We have some stuff in common, like nose size and parents, but we are very different. When I was younger, I was always trying to prove to myself that my talents were better than theirs. So what if you're more outgoing than me? I've always been better at school than you, and that's more important anyway. I've since seen the stupidity of that kind of thinking, and I'm still learning to appreciate the fact that my brothers have their strengths and I have mine. No one's better or worse, only different. That's why you shouldn't feel so bad if a member of the opposite sex, whom you're just dying to go out with, doesn't go for you. You may be the most luscious of mouth-watering grape around, but he or she may be looking for an orange. And no matter how much you want a change of fruit, you're a grape and they want an orange. But don't worry. A grape seeker is bound to drop by. It all balances out. Instead of trying to blend in and be like everyone else, be proud of and celebrate your unique differences and qualities. A fruit salad is delicious precisely because each fruit maintains its own flavor. Roadblocks to celebrating differences. Although there are many, 3 of the largest roadblocks to synergy are ignorance, cliques, and prejudice. Ignorance. Ignorance means you're clueless. You don't know what other people feel or believe or what they've been through. Ignorance often abounds when it comes to understanding people with disabilities, as Crystal Lee Holmes explains in an article submitted to Mirror, a Seattle area newspaper. My name is Crystal. I'm 5 foot 1 inch with blonde hair and hazel eyes. Big deal, right? What if I told you I was deaf? In a perfect world, it shouldn't matter. We don't live in a perfect world, though, and it does matter. The moment someone knows I'm deaf, their whole attitude changes. Suddenly, they look at me differently. You'd be surprised how people act. The most common question I get is, how'd you become deaf? When I tell them, their reaction is as common as the question itself. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's so sad. Whenever that happens, I simply look them in the eye and I calmly inform them, no, really, it's not sad at all. Don't apologize. No matter how good the intentions are, pity always makes my stomach churn. Not all attitudes put me on the defensive. Some are just plain funny. I was signing with my friends and some dude I didn't know came up to me and started talking. What's it like being deaf? I don't know. What's it like being hearing? I mean, it isn't like anything. It just is. You see, the thing is this. If you meet someone who is deaf, don't write them off as disabled or disadvantaged. Instead, take the time to get to know them and find out what being deaf is all about. By doing this, you open yourself to understanding not only others, but more important, yourself. Cliques. There's nothing wrong with hanging out with guys or girls you're comfortable with. It only becomes a problem only when your group of friends becomes so exclusive that they reject everyone who isn't just like them. It's kind of hard to value differences in a close-knit clique. Those on the outside feel like second-class citizens, and those on the inside often suffer from superiority complexes. But breaking into a clique isn't hard. All you have to do is lose your identity, be assimilated, and become part of the Borg collective. Prejudice. Have you ever felt stereotyped, labeled, or prejudiced by someone because of your skin, your gender, your accent, or where you live? Isn't it a sick feeling? Although we're all created equal, unfortunately, we're not all treated equally. It's a sad fact that minorities and women often have additional hurdles to leap in life because of prejudices held by so many. The United States elected an African-American president, but racism is still a huge problem. This is Natasha's experience. Racism can make succeeding tougher. When you're a black student in the top 10% of your class, maintaining a 4.0 grade average, some people have a tendency to feel threatened. I just wish that people would realize that everyone, no matter where they're from or what their color they are, deserves the same opportunities. As far as my friends and I are concerned, prejudice will always be a battle. We aren't born with prejudices. They're learned. Kids, for instance, are colorblind, but as they mature, they begin to pick up on the prejudices of others and form walls, as is explained in Rodgers and Hammerstein's lyrics to a song from the old classic musical South Pacific. You've got to be taught to be afraid of people whose eyes are oddly made and people whose skin is different shade. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught before it's too late, before you are 6 or 7 or 8. To hate all the people your relatives hate, you've got to be carefully taught. The following poem by an unknown source tells the sad tale of what happens when people prejudge one another. The Cold Within. 6 humans trapped by happenstance in bleak and bitter cold. Each one possessed a stick of wood, so the story is told. Their dying fire in need of logs, the first man held his back. For all the faces round the fire, he noticed one was black. The next man, looking across the way, saw one not of his church, and couldn't bring himself to give the fire his stick of birch. The third one sat in tattered clothes. He gave his coat a hitch. Why should his log be put to use to warm the idle rich? The rich man just sat back and thought of the wealth he had in store, and how to keep what he had earned from the lazy and shiftless poor. The black man's face bespoke revenge as the fire passed from sight, for all he saw in his stick of wood was a chance to spite the white. The last man of this forlorn group did not accept for gain. Giving only to those who gave was how he played the game. Their logs held tight in death's still hand was proof of human sin. They didn't die from the cold without. They died from the cold within. Sticking up for diversity. Fortunately, the world is full of people who are warm within and who value diversity. The following story of Bill Sanders is a wonderful example of sticking up for diversity and showing courage. A couple of years ago, I witnessed courage that ran chills up and down my spine. At a high school assembly, I had spoken about picking on people and how each of us has the ability to stand up for people instead of putting them down. Afterwards, we had a time when anyone could come out of the bleachers and speak into the microphone. Students could say thank you to someone who had helped them, and some people came up and did just that. A girl thanked some friends who had helped her through family troubles. A boy spoke of some people who had supported him during an emotionally difficult time. Then a senior girl stood up. She stepped over to the microphone, pointed to the sophomore section, and challenged her whole school. Let's stop picking on that boy. Sure, he's different from us, but we are in this thing together. On the inside, he's no different from us and needs our acceptance, love, compassion, and approval. He needs a friend. Why do we continually brutalize him and put him down? I'm challenging this entire school to lighten up on him and give him a chance. Differences create the challenge in life that open the door to discovery. At the time she shared, I had my back to the section where the boy sat, and I had no idea who he was, but obviously the whole school knew. I felt almost afraid to look at his section, thinking the boy must be red in the face, wanting to crawl under his seat and hide from the world. But as I glanced back, I saw a boy smiling from ear to ear. His whole body bounced up and down, and he raised one fist in the air. His body language said, thank you, keep telling them, you saved my life today. If you've ever been bullied yourself, you know how it feels. It's a terrible thing that no one should ever have to go through. So watch out for those courageous moments when you can stop the bullying of another person right in its tracks, whether live or online. Finding the highway. Once you've bought into the idea that differences are a strength and not a weakness, and once you're committed to at least trying to celebrate differences, you're ready to find the highway. The Buddhist definition of the middle way does not compromise. It means higher, like the apex of a triangle. Synergy is more than just compromise or cooperation. Compromise is 1 + 1 = 1.5. Cooperation is 1 + 1 = 2. Synergy is 1 + 1 = 3 or more. It's creative cooperation with an emphasis on the word creative. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Builders know all about it. If one 2x4 beam can support 607 pounds, then two 2x4s should be able to support 1,214 pounds, right? Actually, two 2x4s can support 1,821 pounds. If you nail them together, two 2x4s can now support 4,878 pounds, and three 2x4s nailed together can support 8,481 pounds. Musicians know how this works too. They know that when a C and a G note are perfectly in tune, it produces a third note, or an E. In my physics lab, the teacher was demonstrating the principle of momentum, and our assignment was to construct a catapult, like in medieval times. We called it a pumpkin launcher. There were 3 of us in our group, 2 boys and me. We were all quite different, so we came up with a lot of different ideas. One of us wanted to use bungee cords to make the launcher flip. Someone else wanted to use tension and ropes. We tried each without much success, and then we figured out a way to use both of them together. It gave a lot more spring than either would have alone. It was cool because it doubled the length of our shot. Synergy occurred as the founders of the United States were forming their government structure. William Patterson proposed the New Jersey Plan, which said that states should get equal representation in government, regardless of population size. This plan favored the smaller states. James Madison had a different idea known as the Virginia Plan, which argued that states with a greater population should have greater representation. This plan favored the larger states. After several weeks of debate, they reached a decision that all parties felt good about. They agreed to have 2 branches of Congress. In one branch, the Senate, each state would get 2 representatives, regardless of population size. In the other branch, the House of Representatives, each state would get representatives based on population. Although it's called the Great Compromise, this famous decision could really be called the Great Synergy because it has proved to be better than either of the original proposals. Getting to synergy. Whether you're arguing with your parents over dating and curfew guidelines, picking teams to shoot hoops, or simply not seeing eye to eye with your best friend, there's a way to get to synergy. Here's a simple 5-step process to help you get there. 1. Define the problem or the opportunity. Their way, seek first to understand the ideas of others. My way, seek to be understood by sharing your ideas. Brainstorm, create new options and ideas. The highway, find the best solution. Let's give the action plan a try on a problem and see how it works. The vacation. Dad, I don't care how you feel. You're going on this vacation whether you like it or not. We've had this plan for months and it's important that we spend some time together as a family. Mom, I don't want you staying here by yourself. I'd worry about what you're doing and who you're hanging out with. We want you with us. So define the problem or opportunity. In this case, we have a problem. It's this. My parents want me to vacation with the family, but I would rather stay home and go out with my friends. Their way. Try using the listening skills you learned in Habit 5 so you can really understand your mom and dad. Remember, if you want to have power and influence with your parents, they need to feel understood. By listening, you learn the following. This vacation is very important to my dad. He wants to have a family bonding time. He feels it won't be the same without me. Mom feels that she would worry so much about me being home alone that she wouldn't enjoy the vacation. My way. Now practice the second half of Habit 5 and have the courage to share your feelings. If you've taken the time to listen to them, they'll be much more likely to listen to you. So tell your parents how you feel. Mom and Dad, I want to stay home and be with my friends. They're very important to me. We have a lot of things planned and I don't want to miss out on any of the fun. Besides, I go crazy when I have to drive in the car all the way with my little sister. Brainstorm. This is where magic happens. Utilize your imagination and create new ideas together that you could never think of alone. As you brainstorm, keep these tips in mind. Get creative. Throw out your wildest ideas. Let it flow. Avoid criticism. Nothing kills the flow of creativity like criticism. Resist. Piggyback. Keep building upon the best ideas. It's called piggybacking. One great idea leads to another, which leads to another. Brainstorming produces the following ideas. Dad said we could go on a vacation spot that I would enjoy more. I mentioned I could stay with relatives close by. Mom suggested I could take a friend with me. I mentioned using my savings and busing out to meet them so I wouldn't have to drive in a crowded car. Busing out to meet them so I wouldn't have to drive. Mom was willing to cut the vacation short so it would be easier for me. I suggested staying home for part of the vacation and joining them later. Dad was willing to let me stay home if I would clean up his computer so they'd run faster while they were gone.